включиться так, посмотри.
Да, я ушел. Соберись, бахай.
Жека.
Neye?
years ago. Now, with this technique, there was one very important problem, this is referred to as by some as mud cracks, desiccation cracks, dehydration cracks. I'll show you in an image in a minute what they look like. But actually what happens when you have an oil-based mud is this. You use an oil-based mud to contain the wellbore. That is the primary use of an oil-based mud. And an oil-based mud has a water phase and an oil phase. And that water phase you try to keep rather saline to prevent the water from entering the formation. That is common practice. Now if that water phase is too saline and it comes into contact with formation water, you know what will happen. There is an osmotic effect. And what actually will happen is that the fresh water from the formation will be pulled out of the formation so as to mix, so as to equalize the salinity between the two waters. That's not what you want to see happening, because if this happens in front of shales, you tend to dry out the shale. And that is what you see happening in this image. It is a very common problem with these OBMI logs. These are the so-called mud cracks. Well, in this case, you would argue you can still recognize the underlying bedding structure, but it's starting to be really a nuisance to be able to work with this. Now, this effect with the new technique has been completely eliminated. And for us interpreters, that has been, besides the better resolution, has been a tremendous advantage. The elimination of mud cracks. How is that done? I'll show you, first of all, in generic terms, the physical measurement principle. So we have a tool, again, with a series of electrodes. An injector is injecting current into the formation, but the return is very short. The return is on the pad. It is a higher frequency measurement, which is the reason why we can avoid this problem with mud cracks. And actually there's 4 different measurements that are made at 2 different frequencies, an amplitude and a phase measurement. And this is then combined to produce an image, which essentially is an impedivity image. So it gives you an image of the impedance of the formation. This is the tool that we use to make these measurements. So again, it is a tool with pads, just like all the other dip meters and electrical images. We'll always look at a type of a sonde with scanning pads that seek to have good formation contact. They're all built around that principle. And I just tested my animation so it should work. So this is what happens. In this case, you see we're running in, we're logging downwards. So these injectors, this impedance is created, and we create in real time an image which is now no longer a resistivity image. What it actually represents is, as I said, is the impedivity. It is the impedance of the formation, and we achieve remarkable resolution with that. Actually, comparable and sometimes even exceeding that of the water-based mud images. But this is the way the interpretation for these logs is done. Internally, we use TechLog. There is other packages available on the market that do similar things. That is not what I was trying to bring across. The software part for this is well under control. So that is for people that are interested in applying this service. We've done it actually once already in Tunisia. We ran it about 30 times in West Africa, and I just want to quickly show you some exciting examples of what we can do with this. So here you have images processed and normalized in a convenient way. You will understand that by picking these events that can be translated into dips in the dip meter plot. These symbols indicate the dip magnitude and dip azimuth of an event, and it is the interpreter that labels them. So the interpreter, and I think you will agree with him or her, identified a break at this point. So that is the location of a fault plane. In a cartoon, you can imagine what is happening like this. So you have a fault plane with this upper block in a downward movement. We can look at that stereographically, but the main piece of information coming from this high resolution image is exactly the location and the orientation of this fault plane, and the fact that there is an associated drag with it as well. The increase in coverage with respect to the previous generation, the legacy tool, is phenomenal. This is a good example of what happens if you don't have enough azimuthal coverage. You completely miss some of these features, like in this case, which could be a microfault. That is completely impossible to interpret from images that lack the coverage. This is another way to identify the differences in coverage between the various generations of tools. Some examples from plastics. So you see that when we have good formation contact, good formation, good borehole quality, the quality of these images is outstanding. This is absolutely nothing unusual, and this is a great pleasure to work with. I'm a sedimentologist myself, so when we look at these things here, you can actually try and do an analysis as if you were looking at a slabbed core, for instance. Other plastics, showing you the individual grain sizes, cross beds. This is quite a relevant example in one of the publications that I will highlight towards the end as well. What we're seeing in West Africa, we're looking a lot at deep sea classics, turbiditic fans, fan deltas, and more often than not they are developed also as sheets. And if you have a sheet-like deposit, it becomes hard for an interpreter to identify the sand distribution. You want to have a handle on the paleotransport directions even within a sheet. So it becomes really important to be able to find these small cross-bedded sets that contain that information about in which direction the sand was distributed. So this is an example of that. Anyway, the interpretation, once you have the image processed, is quite straightforward. Can be quite lengthy if you have long sequences to go through with lots of details. But the main issue here is to make sure you get a good, high quality, high resolution image, and then you can do your thing. This is another example I wanted to highlight. These are so-called injectites. I don't know if you're familiar with this phenomenon, but under certain conditions, unconsolidated sand can be remobilized and can actually move upward and push through impermeable layers. It is not just something that could happen. It is very relevant in many parts of the world, including the North Sea, including West Africa, Senegal, Mauritania, Angola, where we see this a lot, because it is actually a way to create a connection between two parts of the reservoir. Because these injectites may actually create a conduit for hydrocarbons. So you can readily identify them in the image. This is an analog, of course. This is not an image taken exactly over this outcrop. That would be impossible. But this is an analog of what these injectites look like. So this sort of work is still typically conducted by geologists, starting with a high resolution image. We can subdivide the reservoir section into, for instance, what's happened here in debris flows, zones with frequent erosional events, zones with imbricated clasts, the main sands, and that's the way to build up your sedimentological reconstruction. This is just one of the last slides I wanted to add. Actually, I added it yesterday because I realized there is a big interest in unconventional at the moment in North Africa. So I just wanted to highlight that not in North Africa we haven't used this technique yet in shale in shales, but obviously in the US we use it very frequently. So this is the sort of information you may be able to extract from this type of a borehole image. If you run it in a shale, you can identify the exact location. Of publications have been made in for SPWLA, and this is a very good one, an internal publication by Schlumberger, where we summarize some of the things that I discussed here as well. So again, if you're interested to get in touch with me as a result of this, or you're looking for information, this is my email address, just the last part of my family name, Doorn, D-O-O-R-N, @slb.com. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranjan. Are there any questions? More questions? Okay, move to the second presentation. Merci, monsieur. For the second presentation, it will be presented by Mr. Diffusion. The fact is modern well blocks technology to improve geological model for living sand sandstone reservoir. Mr. Diffusion is a reservoir engineer, specialist working for Waha Oil Company as the supervisor of the development projects section planning department. He has reserve and petroleum engineering and well and field management. In addition, he has extensive experience and expertise working on different types of reservoir, shallow and deep reservoir, consolidated and consolidated reservoir, volumetric reservoirs, and partial or strong water drive, and reservoir and water injection for pressure maintenance and voltage replacement.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Interested with my colleagues and business partner, Waha Company, Mr. Tariq Duzan and Mr. Muhammad Abbas. Today I'm gonna present our technology model developed technology to improve geological model for deep TVS and instrumental work. I will start with my outlines, starting with the introduction, and we will go through the geological background of Sirti Basin, exactly North Jallo, and we will have a look to location and data acquired, and the importance of the image log using in Jallo field, and we will show you the results of the image interpretation, and we will conclude some points to you according to the results. Let's have a look to the North Jallo field. North Jallo field is situated at the eastern portion of the Sirti Basin, at the intersection of Hamaimat and Ajdabiya troughs on the northern half of the Jallo structure height. So the new structural stratigraphical and structural concept was developed by Waha instead of doing acquisition of 3D seismic survey. Based on the interpretation of these 3D seismic survey, a new well was drilled in early 2002. As you can see here, our columnar section, and you can see our reservoir and the source rock is highlighted by the red and the green box. Structurally, the field bisected by numerous faults. The western side of the field dominated by north-northwest, south-southeast trends fault, while the eastern side is dominated by faulting with west-northwest, east-southeast. As well as the northwest part of the field is vertically bisected by several modes, separating the whole field to about 301,000 spacing to the measured fault blocks. As you can see here in the structural map, both wells are located in Jalu field. This is the A4. This is the A4 59D, and this is the 6J16 59E. And the two wells are located in a different structure. We try to use new technology, high resolution new technology meter. We use OBMI, oil-based mud imager in 6J16, and we use FMI in A459D. So in some places in Sirte Basin, the seismic data is hopeless to resolve the larger scale of features, structure features. So, and the image log acquired with the sun wells in Jado field, we try to solve some challenges due to the poor quality of seismic data and unexpected thickening and thinning of the reservoir result, and difference between the proposed and actual well depths were noticed in the reservoir zone. So we couldn't build a solid geological model in Jado area because you can see here the Beckett unconformity, BUK, what we call BUK, pre-apparentitious unconformity. It's difficult to pick up the horizon of the BUK due to the poor quality of the seismic data, as well as we assumed that the region was a fault trap and the beds are horizontally as it seems to be. So let's go deeply with the analysis, what we call here the structural analysis. As you can see here, the depth is clear below and above the BUK. What we call here is a tablet. The direction here is dipping from the northwest to the northeast, above and below the BUK. And moving to the vector plot here, you can see all the structural or stratigraphic column section, starting with the Nubian lower sandstone, trending towards northwest, and we go further to the BUK and the Nubian upper sandstone, which is northeast trending. So when we try to view the 2D structure analysis, you can see here the cross section over the two wells, and the depth is so clear here above and below the BUK. With 13 degrees is so clear here above the BUK, below the BUK, and we can say that the depth meter here is sub-horizontally above the BUK. So we try to divide the structure zone into two structure zones, with the structure zone 1 and structure zone 2, as well as the bedding and the structure depth here. So we try to gather all the data to build a strong 3D model with using a high technique near borehole 3D structural model, what we call is expand BG. As you can notice that the BUK is angular unconformity here, and the bedding or the stratigraphic column below it is tilted. It's about 14 degrees. So finally, we come up with the original static model, and as you can see here, the difference between the original one and the updated one. The original one, based on the seismic survey, was sub-flat or sub-horizontal. Then when we use our technology, the dip is clear here, and the fault is so clear between the two wells. Another thing we do to A4, we use FMI technique, formation micro imager, and the same thing with the tables here. You can see the switch change in the direction of depth direction here, below and above the BUK. So this technique helps us to understand what's going on under and above the BUK, as well as the structure depth and the bedding. Another thing with the 2D structure analysis, we try to pick up the fault here, and you can see the difference between the depth here is so clear. It's about 13 degrees below the BUK. This is the BUK, and this is the tables, and this is the trend of dipping here towards northeast and northwest and toward northeast above it. Again, the expand BG for A459D is so clear that the bedding and formation below the BUK here is tilted towards northeast, and the degree of dipping here is about 13 degrees. And we update our model to show you the difference between the original one and the updated one, and it's clear that we assume before we run our technology or the OBMI and FMI technique here, that the base was, to some extent, was flat, and after we run this, we are absolutely agreed that the bedding is tilted below the BUK, and the dip angle here is about 13 degrees. So what the value from gathering such these data? What the value of knowing that the BUK is tilted here? It's so important for further information about volume calculation. We know we now have a big idea about where exactly we inject where the place exactly for water injection and hydraulic fraction, as well as the reservoir delineation, and where exactly perforate our wells, and where we drill horizontally. So we come up with the conclusion of our presentation here that the pre-upper cretaceous conformity is angular, and the reservoir below it is tilted, which explain that the unexpected reservoir thickening and thinning. This information helped Waha Oil Company predict to propose formation tops with a great accuracy. As I said before, the previous geological model had a high uncertainty because the 3D seismic survey has poor quality due to the large scale of structure features and does not reliably represent the structural geology of the field. The trap type is angular conformity, as I said before, and not only fault trap as originally believed. Based on this finding, Waha Oil Company, this is an important point, Waha Oil Company chose a required to reprocess our seismic data and update its geological model using the FMI, high new technique FMI and OBMI micro imager outputs. Finally, the interpretation result will also be used to parallel place and drill injection wells based on the reservoir tilting below the conformity. Waha Oil Company decided that it will acquire borehole imaging in all its future wells. Thank you for your attention. Unless you have any questions.
Another question, please. That's what I said. But you both grow. From the group. Wow.
what? In terms of volumetrics, style or...
Yes, in terms of volumetric. Yes, everything is changed after we picked the BOK as angular, because we assumed that the interpretation of 3D seismic data was a flat. So it influenced to the volumetric of the reservoir in terms of the reserve and the oil recoverable and everything. So
How much 10% or 10%?
Excuse me, regarding your questions, it's a very good point. As far as I understand it, that recently we conducted in around 2014, it's after appraisal of the area and delineate hydrocarbons for this area, and we construct based on the the seismic interpretation and based on the data gathered from those wells. The spacing is very high if you want to do. You have the structure of the spacing is so high, when it's around 7 to 6 kilometers between well and well. And this area is very deep and what you call compartments, uplifting in some areas and down some areas. So it's hard, in general speaking, when you interpret the seismic interpretation, especially in this case, deepening and conformity, it's hard to get a nice seismic interpretation. The seismic interpretation would correlate with the existing wells, you can find out the nice pictures. However, what we presented here, we emphasize that how is it very important, the high resolution technique in order to minimize the uncertainties in terms of structure-wise. Okay, in those wells, you see the locations there, here, as in this map, this one and this one. This is spacing is so long, okay, and in different compartments. We cannot interpret it. Yes, we have size, but it's not that quality. It's very poor. It's less quality. And yes, we have, but in structure-wise, you can identify the dipping in the structure between those. You cannot. That's what we find. So here we find the very complex and very difficult to interpret. And when we construct, as I said, the original model based on the way we have information, and we expected that to rise in 0 degrees. But after that, or because if we have very high uncertainties in terms of structure-wise dipping itself, we highly recommend it as WAHA for redevelop this field to conduct a new technology, which is called high-resolution logs, FMI and OMI, one for oil-based mark and the second one for water-based mark. But the same parts, we got controversial results. We found instead of horizontal, the dipping 14. That means, give us a long story. Now we need to refine the original geological model. This study is underway now. For any future drilling, we necessitate to drill, or for any future drilling, we necessitate to use the technology to confirm the original one or update it. Because based on that, the management plan depends on it in terms of rejection or production. You got that?
Okay, thank you very much. You can do the next presentation. Susan. Okay. For the presentation. environment and radiation and physical analysis of the sand reservoir area. This in the third basin area. It will be presented by Mr. Hussein The third presentation is innovative approach for formation regulation with the sourceless technology. We present by Lamali Clara Schumberger, where he is a senior geoscientist for Schumberger, North Africa. He joined Schumberger in 2008 as a technologist after 4 years experience in geology with the paper roots. His experience covers the geophysics, acoustic, VH image measures, and advanced geology studies. He worked at Geology Degree for UST-B, Nigeria University. Okay, we can
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for your attendance. My name is Arab Lamadi. I will be presenting this topic which we cover innovative approach for formation evaluation using a new technology, LWT. So just retain that this is related to logging while drilling, and this is a new generation tool called NewScope. In this presentation, we will see some logging and reservoir challenges, and then we will see an overview about this new technology tool called NewScope. After that, we will see the workflow for this NewScope data, and we will see then some case studies in North Africa, and we will end up with a conclusion. So sometimes, due to some conditions related to weather conditions, it's not possible to acquire data. And sometimes at level field, it's still always not possible to acquire data. We have no information, no possibility to get the potential in place. In addition to this, some logs require a radioactive source. And you know that the handling of this radioactive source is very strict. And the loss of this radioactive source has the consequences are very big and very important. So this is related to operations and logging. And in addition to this, some reservoirs present some heterogeneities, laterally, vertically. So that's why, coupled to the radioactive chemical sources handling problem, so the demand is increasing for using sourceless, means that tools without radioactive source in the world. And Schlumberger introduced this new technology, which is called NewScope, which is sourceless, without radioactive source in the market. So why NewScope? So NewScope, as I just mentioned, eliminate the risk, transportation and handling the chemical source. In addition to this, it provides in only one tool a complete suite of logs. One tool can provide gamma ray, neutron porosity, neutron gamma density, resistivity, spectroscopy, and sigma, in addition to ultrasonic caliber and gamma ray image. In addition to this, this tool enables us to take decisions in real time. And other than that, This pulse neutron generator tool is the only in the market for the LWD industry. So we see just a short video about this new technology. So here we don't have a need to use the chemical source. No problem handling transportation of this chemical source. And once the tool in the hole, and once the turbine are activated, the mud will flow. And once the mud flows, the PNG or pulse neutron generator is activated. And fast neutrons will be emitted in pulses. So the interaction of these fast neutron with the formation will allow to have all these measures: density, neutron gamma density, and the helium tube will allow to record porosity, neutron porosity, in addition to spectroscopy for mineralogy, and signal. So all these services are obtained in one tool, and the result is here. So we have all the open hole logs, which, in addition to also all the draining environment measurements, as well as gamma ray ultrasonic caliper propagation that we'll see a bit later. So all these logs will enable us to perform a real-time petrophysical evaluation. So once we acquire all these data by microscope, there is a workflow that we follow in order to use the data. So we have pre-job that we conduct with the client, discussion about the field knowledge, some offset wells, and then during the operations we have real-time monitoring of the acquisition. So using techlog and antenna. So once the real-time data is being acquired, we can see these logs, and we can perform some evaluations. There is at the end post-job processing, which is delivered at daily basis each 24 hours to the client, and at the end there is presentation and discussion with So as just we have seen in the video, these are the products obtained from the microscope. We have, as I mentioned, gamma ray image, borehole shape, resistivities, ultrasonic calipers, and as other open logs, we have mineralogy or spectroscopy, neutron density, sigma, and also the evaluation, petrophysical evaluation in the real time. Now we move to see some case studies of these microscopes recorded here in North Africa. So the first examples that we will be seeing are the microscope acquired in the same hole, in the same well, same section with one line data. So we can see that in the same well, we have the density from microscope in blue and in one is red. You can see a good match between both. In addition to the porosity from one line and from microscope, also our clothes are overlaid. This is gamma ray from both, which is also overlaid, and this is sigma. Here we have the spectroscopy mineralogy from microscope, and there we have the mineralogy spectroscopy from our line, which are reading exactly the same in terms of mineralogy and clay volume, as you can see. In the graph there, you can see the projection of density from microscope and from our line are very close. This is another example where we had the microscope acquired in the same section, same well as the one line tool. The previous example was in water-based mat, and this is in oil-based mat. We have same comparison between microscope and one line. you can see that the new scope is in red and the bar line is in black. So this is the density, this is neutron, and this is the sigma, gamma ray, sorry. And then this is the resistivity from new scope and bar line 2. Also, the projection of the density from new scope and the bar line is given the same overlay. So as I mentioned, new scope can be used in various environments. And this example where we have the new scope logged in the horizontal well for the purpose of geosteering. So in addition to the periscope, new scope was run in this horizontal well in order to exactly detect and locate the sweet spot within the reservoir. This is the reservoir, and the purpose of the new scope, based on all the logs generated by the new scope, will enable to take decision to still keep going in the sweet spot. Here we have another example in tight reservoir. We have hot sand. You can see on the gamma that they are really very high. And the importance of the scope is in the spectroscopy, which shows that the V clay or clay volume is very low if we compare to the gamma ray, which is really very high on this chart. Another example of scope logging, which was performed in an unconventional reservoir. We can see resistivity, gamma ray, resistivity, neutron density, and this spectroscopy there. As conclusion, so new scope has proven to be a very good option to mitigate and eliminate all risks related to the radioactive source. In addition to the useful and complete suite of logs that can be provided by this tool, and new scope is a real-time tool that enables us to take decisions, and this tool can be run in various environments. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the presentation. What are the environments that where we can use this technology for sources?
So, this is in vertical, deviated,
The wells, in addition to as reservoir or environments varies from carbonate to tight to unconventional, where it was logged in all these environments.
For the presentation, very important. Just, I have one question. Whenever we have this risk to use the radioactive source, whenever we are requiring the gamma ray, for example, these leave 6-inch horizontal section. So, is this can be
For the moment, the new scope is designed in 8.5-inch section.
but in terms of whenever we have this risk to use the radioactive source, this can be
So this, you mean the risk of losing the radioactive source? So this is not equipped with this radioactive source.
there is no radioactive
No,
source in it.
no.
No risk in
It-
terms of
Yes, this is based on pulse neutron generation. So this is which makes the difference between the legacy generation, which is still in use, as well as the LWD industry. All the industry, this is unique in the market.
the result are typically seen or
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. Thank you for your presentation. I
So there is two kinds of resistivity, attenuation and propagation.
And the number of it seems less than the R line.
5 for each, propagation and attenuation, yes.
Propagation and attenuation.
No, 5.
5.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There is no limitation in pressure temperature for the tool for in case of high temperature.
It can go till 170 degrees Celsius in terms of the pressure.
And I wanted to know about the diameter, operating diameter for windows, any size, 6 inch, 8 inch,
Yes.
12 more.
This new follow mount is designed to in the 8.5 inch section. We have not in 6 inch section.
Thank you.
The last presentation will be presented by Nasreen Bendeli, our Okay. For the last presentation, that is electric technology added value in contact determination and detailed information evaluation. It will be presented by Mr. Nassim Benzeli Amor from Schlumberger. Is a pathologist for she's pathologist for SIS Schlumberger with an integrated knowledge of wireline data acquisition, acoustics, and petrophysics. She has contributed to numerous young assignments in her 10-year career, including 2 years as a wireline field engineer. She was a chemical engineer degree from University of US in 2007.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for attending my presentation, which will talk about the added value of integrating dielectric technology in detailed information evaluation and the determination of fluid contact. So during the presentation, we'll have a look on some of the main challenges that we are facing in petrophysical evaluation. Then we'll go to key information about the tool, technology, and principle of measurements. We'll see the main step of the workflow followed during the analysis of this data. Then we'll have some applications of the technology, and we will see and discuss several case studies from North Africa and other parts of the world. And then we'll finish with the conclusion. So some of the many challenges that we have when we want to estimate the potential of the reservoirs in terms of petrophysics. For example, when we are doing with non-conventional reservoirs, where the conventional workflows, the conventional technology are not enough, are not sufficient to give us the answer that we are seeking, especially when we have low porosities, low permeabilities, for example, for tight reservoirs, where the high uncertainty is linked to the saturation profile due to the absence of clear hydrocarbon water contact or the presence of high amount of irreducible water that can affect the resistivity readings. We have also cases where the complex mineralogy and the heterogeneity in terms of properties, either laterally or vertically, prevent us to propagate the fluid contact across the wells or propagate the petrophysical properties and make correlations. And also we have the challenges linked to the variable water salinity. So for all of these challenges, traditional technologies, traditional workflow are not sufficient to give us detailed information evaluation and help us. That's why we need some advanced technologies. And one of this new technology is the dielectric technology, which is based on the measurement of the permittivity and the conductivity of the formation with a very high vertical resolution in the order of 1 inch. So this permittivity and conductivity, where the conductivity is a well-known parameter, the permittivity might need some definition. So the permittivity of the formation is the ability of the formation to transmit or emit an electromagnetic field that is applied on this medium. So it is the ability of a medium to polarize as a response to electromagnetic field. And this polarization is the phenomena where there is a separation in a medium between the two different charges, between negative and positive charges. And this phenomenon depends on the frequency. So it changes, the degree of polarization changes in function of the frequency of this electromagnetic field that we are applying on a formation. So how do we measure this? So we're just transmitting. We are creating an electromagnetic field, transmitting in the formation, and then we measure the change in the amplitude and phase of this wave that we are sending from the transmitter to a receiver. And then from these properties we can calculate the permittivity and conductivity, which are the base of this technology. These are two parameters linked to each other. And also, since we are operating at different frequencies, 4 frequencies, so we are also measuring the dielectric dispersion, so the difference according to the different frequency. Why we are interested in those properties? Because the permittivity of the water, whatever its salinity, is very different from the permittivity of the oil and the permittivity of the matrix that we are crossing. So the contrast is very high. As we see here, the permittivity of the water molecules are in the order of 50 or 80, while the oil molecule is around 2. Matrix is around 5 to 9 for the different lithology, for the different mineralogy. This contrast makes this parameter very interesting to evaluate our fluid type. So whatever the salinity, we can differentiate between the water and the hydrocarbon. This polarization is taking place at 3 different levels depending on the frequency. So it's taking place at the electronic level, at the molecular level, like in water molecules, and also at the interfacial level. So this interfacial level enable us also to have information about the textural parameters of the matrix. For the analysis of this data, the data of dielectric, we have 4 main steps. So we start by estimating the total porosity and the matrix permittivity, so the mineralogy of the formation. That will be inputs for the rest of the next step of the workflow. So this is done with external data. So we have to integrate other logs, density, neutral, porosity measurements, and mineralogy or gamma ray to estimate the mineralogy of the formation. Second step is to derive the apparent conductivity or permittivity from the tool measurement. Then we'll have radial processing, which will give us the formation bulk, permittivity and conductivity at the 4 different frequencies where we are operating. And then we will integrate the porosity, and matrix permittivity that we derived here with the permittivities and conductivity to obtain the final output, which is the saturation. So we'll have a saturation profile independent from the resistivity. We'll have water conductivity or water salinity, and we have the textural parameters, which is the Mn, RC exponents, and the CEC for clastics. Some of the application of these answer products is the deriving of hydrocarbon volume of fluid saturation in low resistivity or low contrast resistivity. So where the resistivity cannot differentiate between the hydrocarbon and water. We can derive also the water salinity, where we have a known or variable water salinity in our formation. We can get, due to the textural parameters, we can have a continuous measurement of the RGMN exponents that before that we could get only for core measurements, and cation exchange capacity for the clastics environment. And we'll have, due to the high resolution of the measurement, water field porosity that is used for thin bed analysis, where we have thin laminations. So after that we have an overview of the technology and application. We will see now several case studies where the integration of this data has been really helpful to make a detailed formation evaluation. So the first case study is in tight formation, clastic environment. Average porosity is 3 pu, so it's very low porosity. So here we have, first of all, the basic logs. Here we have the gamma ray. Second track, we have density neutron, photoelectric factor. These are some outputs from the ADT, because we have the dielectric scanner data in this well. And here in the last track, we have the saturation from the resistivity, from the lateral log. So from the resistivity, from this saturation, we can put a gas-water contact at this depth, considering only the resistivity. But we had saturation from dielectric scanner, which shows that the contact is higher by around 60 meters from the contact from the resistivity. So here we have also the mineralogy. So here we have the mineralogy. This is the resistivities, and then we have the permeability from NMR, different porosity, and the fracture density from image log. In this well also we had MDT. So since it's tight formation, we had to target the layers where we have more chance to get a representative sample. So we needed to integrate borehole image and sonic scanner data to see where we had fractures, so we have better chances to get fluid samples. So 3 stations of MDT showed that gas presence were in the upper part. This was confirming both the resistivity and the dielectric scanner saturation. Then we had a sample between the 2 contacts, and it was water sample. So this confirmed the contact from the dielectric scanner, because from the resistivity we could say that we had hydrocarbon till this depth, but the MDT confirmed that the contacts were higher. So, and this workflow integrating all these measurements and the dielectric technology measurements was a key for the evaluation of this type of reservoir, especially that these wells were candidates to hydraulic fracking. So the estimation, the determination of fluid contact was very important to design an effective frac job. The second case study is showing the importance of the integration of the spectroscopy with the dielectric technology. So we had a comparison with the evaluation using only gamma ray, which is high in all the interval, as we see here. Is the same well, but 2 different methodologies. So we see in the first track the gamma ray is high all over the interval. So we can think that it's shady all over the interval. So using only gamma ray, we get a volume of clay that is quite high, and it affects the final saturation calculation, as we see here. So no real potential for this well. On the opposite, when we integrate the mineralogy, so the spectroscopy log, we see that the upper part is clean. So these were radioactive sands that were making the gamma reading high. So with using this, integrating this data in the dielectric workflow, as we saw for the total porosity and the mineralogy that will give us the matrix permittivity, we get a really interesting saturation in all these intervals that we could ignore in the first case. So this shows the importance of the precision in the estimation of porosity and mineralogy with the integration with different technologies. The third case study is showing a reservoir where we had the dielectric as well in the first track. So we have the total porosity in black from the neutron density, good porosity. The blue is the water field porosity from dielectric. So it's showing some lamination since it's high vertical resolution. And we see the difference between the total porosity and the water field porosity. The deficit is actually the hydrocarbon porosity, hydrocarbon field porosity. So we see that we have hydrocarbon porosity. In the other track, we have the classical resistivity, deep and micro resistivity, which are reading quite low in those intervals. So the saturation derived from the resistivity is high water saturation, especially here, while the saturation from the dielectric scanner is showing hydrocarbon. So dielectric is showing thin lamination, which was confirmed with borehole image, FMI, high resolution, which confirmed the lamination. Also, we had in this way the RT scanner that can give us the vertical and horizontal resistivity, which is showing the difference between the two resistivity, because we have had lamination. So it confirmed the anisotropy in resistivity. So this work, the low resistivity reading was due to thin lamination. Another case here with good porosity as well. So we have the porosity in the first track, we have the resistivity in the second, deep and micro resistivity. So from the resistivity, we see, for example, here is clearly water zone, low resistivity, and then we have high resistivity overlaying micro and deep resistivity. So no invasion in this high porosity, heavy oil. And then in the top part, we have the separation, deep resistivity reading high, micro resistivity reading low. So we can think that is more moved on with this high porosity and high resistivity. The dielectric scanner shows here at the top overlaying between the water field porosity and the total field porosity. So it's not showing any hydrocarbon. While at the bottom, where the resistivity, both resistivity are high, it shows hydrocarbon. But at the top, it was showing no hydrocarbon potential. And why the resistivity was high? Actually, since we have the salinity from the dielectric, because it was fresh water. That's why the resistivity was reading high, and this could mislead the interpretation. So this is one of the applications of the independent resistivity saturation measurements. For the carbonate environment, one of the important parameters that could be derived from the dielectric technology is the textural parameters. So for this example, we have the deep and micro resistivity standard as the other examples, which are reading quite low all over the interval, deep resistivity, except at this interval, which is increasing. So the saturation that we are calculating gives us some hydrocarbon at these zones. From the dielectric, we have, as the previous case, an overlaying between the water field and the total porosity. So no deficit, it doesn't show any hydrocarbon field porosity. So why is this increased? When we looked at the MN derived from the dielectric scanner, we see the increase in the M exponent of Archimedes equation. This is making the resistivity reading high. And when we calculate the saturation using Mn equal to 2 as default parameters, it generates hydrocarbon saturation that can be misleading. While if we use the MN derived from the dielectric scanner, we can get a more reliable saturation. So as a conclusion, we can say that the dielectric technology brings a new dimension in the petrophysical evaluation, as it gives us a water feed porosity directly measured and independent from the salinity of the water. So independent from the resistivity of the formation water. We can get a reliable hydrocarbon hydrocarbon feed porosity, so hydrocarbon saturation, where we are in shallow invasion environment, and it's a key contributor to the detailed formation evaluation in several challenging environments such as tight environments, complex carbonate environment where we have variable algae exponents, where we are in challenging freshwater or variable salinity waters. It is very important also to precise that integration with other services, other measurements is key to get a precise parameters to be input to the workflow of the dielectric. As we saw in the example, precise mineralogy, precise total porosity to get more accurate saturation profile. And the textural parameters that we could get only from core measurements now is possible thanks to this technology, as we can get a continuous NN RG exponent and also cation exchange capacity measurements continuously in the well for clastic environments. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for this presentation. And it's not questions, it's just I want to elaborate on this point. How to differentiate between carbonaceous and heavy oil in the sandstone or in carbonate reservoirs?
For the interval where we showed the heavy, yes, yes, this one, yes,
You see there in the heavy oil,
yes.
supposed to have carbonaceous. How to differentiate between heavy oil and carbonaceous?
If you have a detailed mineralogy, so you can eliminate.
Do you have any?
That's why.
Any problems to reflect on the yellow carbonaceous materials?
So that's why we said that the integration with the mineralogy inputs. So to eliminate the input from the matrix, and then we will focus on the fluid.
In my case,
Yes.
We found that it's a carbonaceous than oil.
Yes.
That's my question. Is if you have any tools or keys to differentiate between carbonaceous materials in the reservoir in suppliers versus heavy oil, or just crude oil?
Yes, we have different technologies. You can answer. Because it's more related to mineralogy technology.
And I think the most important tool to detect heavy oil is the magnetic resonance. So you can use NMR off, and this will confirm that you have an heavy oil response. So I don't know if you're in your case on which logs you rely to decide to perforate, but I just encourage you that for future wells that you integrate the maximum of logs in order to have a better idea. But I would strongly suggest the magnetic resonance and NMR tool. But yeah, for sure. So one of the logs you have here around here as well. Yeah, so that's why on the examples that Celine showed, you mentioned that she tried to integrate the maximum of logs, even the NTT, the spectroscopy, the CMR. So that's the only way you can accurately characterize your reservoir.
Yes. The egg. Yes. Yes. Yeah. The thing is, we cannot actually change all the parameters at the same time. So the sensitivity of the dielectric technology and each measurement might be sensitive to some parameters and not others. So from the technology point of view, the sensitivity was dependent on the MN parameters. So that's why we could derive the MN from the dielectric technology. So that's why we didn't touch A, and we took the MN from the dielectric data, and it changed the results as we saw in the example. It was not assumptions, because the assumption was when the first. Yeah, we have. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we can change the equation actually, but the heart is to have the MN measurement. So we can use other equations using MN, and we will inject the MN parameters in those equations. And depending on the ecology, actually, we have different parameters, and we have this. And if we have core analysis from offset wells. Yeah, we could not put all the examples in the presentation, but there were a lot of comparison between core measurements, and that's how the validation of the data from the technology has been made, with comparison with the core measurements actually. Yes. What's the total porosity, you mean? Yeah, it was, in those examples, it was a combination, using the density and the neutron. Of course, yes. That's why more data we have, more precise we are. We have density neutron we can combine. If we have NMR porosity, it's even better, especially when we have low porosities, so we will reduce the uncertainties. So when we do the evaluation, we combine all the data that we have. We will not take only neutron porosity or just density porosity.
For example, in one where we use this tool to find most important, maybe instead you can know that deep in using the A values, maybe just changing the N and M is pretty much more on the and so on. So depends on the objective, but definitely the workflow, high level workflow is included on your.
Yeah, I just would like to clarify the points. Yes, as Steve mentioned, the number really don't estimate the porosity separately from neutron and then separately from density and separately from solid again. We use a probabilistic approach. This is the ETAP. So we can put all the available porosity logs, and then based on reconstruction between all the logs, we get the porosity. When you ask about Archie, when Nasreen mentioned Archie equation, it doesn't mean the simplest formula of Archie. Even all the other separation equations, C1, Waxman means all the other equations, we all call them Archie model because they are all based on Archie. So it doesn't mean Archie equation. And for your A, for assumption is of A equal 1, the source of this is from lab tests, because A divided by the porosity to the power of M, we call it the formation factor. So that's the only factor we can measure at the lab. And since we have only one measure for two unknowns, so we have to assume A equal 1 in order to derive the M. So that's the source of it.
Did you experiment the fuel electric tubes within low resistivity phase? I mean, where some animals like chlorides and so on, coupled with the index case.
Yes, this is one of the applications of the dielectric technology where we have the decrease of the resistivity to different effects. So the low resistivity environment is one of the applications of the electric scatter and can be used to develop a saturation that is independent of this effect. Yes.
Normalement. C'est pas assez.
هذا اللي جميل عايش انا اسمه صباح ميرسي عايش بارك الله فيك والله ما شاء Il y a une autre voilà, ceux qui sont هي في اليونيفرسيتي توجور كيما قلنا عندنا وين لازم أنا مرة bon, c'est-à-dire en termes d'émotion, est-ce qu'il affecte bon, moi, جينا من الصيام أنا affecte plus الزوم ما شاء الله انا دخلت شامباز
شمباز
او معنا تجي
تعرفوا شمباز كانت كومباني
يعطيك الصحة ولا كيش حقيت ولا الله يبارك فيك أنا بس توجور أنا توجور أنا بالعادة لأن كنت مع قبل في شونكيه وسكننا في الجزائر مي هو توجور درنا مع بعضنا وقت لاين بعد طلع كيزن زدت نخدم خاطر برفوجة سكن معينين يعني عنده يقول لك مشيت غادي عندك ديزاجواز تخدم ريزرفوار لوغي وتكمل بيرفوراسيون دونك لي زيكيب كي شانجي
خدمنا مع بعض معكم المنصور هذا
c'est pas étonnant. والله c'est un plaisir. يعطيك الصحة. صحيح. On se verra tout à l'heure. إن شاء الله غادي. تحقق حاجة؟ تحقق حاجة؟ والله. Allez, bonne chance.
No problem.
عنده تسمع فيك مش بالمدير سألت تيست عنده جوب تيست عنده شوت
Good morning. Good morning.
شفتوا الصوت كيفاش شو توا عاودها good morning.
Good morning.
أو ولا أصل. good morning.
Mrs. Zidi, Mr. Vanush, and there are Mr. Kanaba. Well, we start by the first talk presented by Zidi Rina. Engineer in ETAP, obtained an engineering diploma in Sciences of Faculty of Sciences. Actually, a PhD research in the same faculty. Her work experience includes geological study and chiefly in Tunisia, and the main investigations are structural geology, gravity analysis, and analog modeling. Mrs. Riemann, you are 25 minutes to present the gravity analysis, new structural insights of Rohia transversal in central Tunisia. This work is elaborated by Rimzidi, Bawi, and Rami.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here today to attend my presentation. So this work is a part of my thesis. So the work is actually ongoing. This presentation is entitled Gravity Analysis, New Structural Insights of Rohia Transversal in Central Tunisia. This presentation will be subdivided into 5 parts: introduction, geographic setting, geological overview, gravity analysis, and conclusion. Let's start with the introduction. Tunisia belongs to the Maghreb domain, which is characterized by structural complex setting. Indeed, its southern part belongs to the north of African Craton, and its northern part belongs to the Alpine domain. Tunisia, as a part of the Africa-Eurasia system, has been subjected to the Titian rifting related to the opening of Atlantic Ocean since the Permian period, then the Pyrenean and the Atlas compressional phases since the Eocene period related to the closure of Titis. The central Tunisian Atlantic domain was highly affected by the succession of multiple tectonic phases that gave extensive and compressive structures of varied orientations. Our study area, Ruhiyya transversal between Qudit al-Halfa and Shirishira, which is located in central Tunisia, is characterized by the interference of the northwest-southeast trending rift system, Atlantic structures, and east-west strike slip faults. The ultimate objective behind this investigation is to integrate available geological data and gravity measurement to get further insights onto the subsurface of Ruhiyya transversal situated in central Tunisia in order to generate a detailed structural map and to recognize the distribution and the spatial extent of different compressive and extensive structures. Let's move on now to the geographic setting. Geographically, our study area belongs to Siliana, Rouen, and Catherine governorates. It extends from west to east, from Ruhiyya Trouf to Baton Syncline, and from north to south, from Wed Behlul Anticline to Labai Monocline. The study area is covered by 6 geological maps: Ruhiyya, Hafous, Rouen, Siba, Jbal Truzza, and Manzil al-Nili. The first step of my work was to merge and to digitize the 6 geological maps in order to get an homogeneous map to see the distribution of different stratigraphic units. So the stratigraphic succession in our study area follows the typical sedimentary series of central Tunisia, with the gaps mainly occurred during Cretaceous. Triassic salt series occupy an abnormal position within the master faults and piercing structures. They consist of gypsum, clay, and dolomite mixture. Structurally, our study area belongs to the Tunisian Central Atlantic domain. It is marked by the presence of several conspicuous features: the northeast trending asymmetric anticlines overturned to the south, such as Truzza, the northwest trending rift system, in our case Ruhiyya Trouf, and the megafracture zones of varied sizes and orientations as illustrated by the major east-west paleogeography fault of Sbiba, Truzza, Shirishira system. Let's move on now to the gravity analysis. To begin, let's introduce a small definition of the gravity method, which is a geophysical exploration method based on the measurement of variations in the gravity field caused by horizontal variations of density within the subsurface. The gravity anomaly is defined as the difference between a measured and a theoretical value of gravity. Then it can be positive or negative, corresponding respectively to a deficit or an excess of mass. The Bully gravity maps used for the current study was obtained from Office National des Mines. The sampling of the gravity data was set to obtain a cover of 1 station per kilometer square. The reduction density is 2.34. The selected density value corresponds to the average of rocks density samples collected from the study area by ONM. The resulting boogie gravity map was obtained using the bridging technique for a spacing of 250 meters using the software OASIS Montage. The workflow begins with the gravity anomaly distribution. As you can see here, the map highlighted low gravity and high gravity axes. Let's start with the high gravity trends. We have 11 positive gravity axes. Generally, they are correlated with mountains, but we have the unusual response of Qudit al-Halfa, which is a salt structure that gave a positive anomaly. This positive anomaly can be explained by the contrast of density between the salt material, which are denser than the Miocene strata surrounding Qudit al-Halfa. Also, we have 3 positive anomalies which are correlated to a lowlands in the geological map. This can be explained by an excess of mass hidden by sedimentary cover. Let's move on now to the low gravity axes. 6 negative anomalies were detected. Generally, they are correlated with synclines, lowland, and troughs. We made a gravimetric profile over Rohiyya Trough. We noticed that the northeast border of Rohiyya Graben is portrayed by a negative signature and a isogal curves, which means an abrupt passing, while the southern edge is portrayed by a gradual transition. This configuration demonstrated that Rohiyya Trough is probably asymmetric. The superposition of gravity anomaly map and the geological map allows to outline some points. Gravity anomalies are positive over Cretaceous outcrops such as Trozza, Masanna, and with Behlul. Tertiary series are generally associated to a low boogie anomaly response, except Jbel Jbil, Labayl, and Waslet, which are tertiary outcrops but associated to a high positive boogie anomaly responses. The positive response can be explained by the high altitude values. Quaternary series are associated to the lowest gravity responses, and syncline and troughs are associated with low gravity responses, clearly contrasted with high responses of anticlines. Let's move on now to the residual gravity map. As the boogie anomaly map is the summation of waves coming from deep and shallow sources, we have to separate them to get more details about shallow perturbation sources. So there are many techniques to calculate the residual gravity map. Here in our study case, we adopt for the second polynomial regression. So the residual gravity map allows the identification of shallow perturbation sources and their distribution in subsurface. It shows a high degree of similarity with the boogie anomaly map, with a clear increase of the anomaly values over positive anomalies. So we can say that generally the perturbation sources are shallow, except for P2, Jbal Jbil. We can see clearly that the positive anomaly decreases. So we can say that Jbil structure is deep-seated. This gravity treatment proves the idea that Qudit al-Halfa structure admits an horizontal extension toward the west, characterized by a positive response. Let's move on now to the vertical derivative gradient. This technique allows more focusing on gravity anomaly. Indeed, this treatment eliminates the coalescence phenomena, thereafter getting a better imaging of causative body shape. The anomalies are getting smaller and their forms are getting close to that of the different geological outcrops present in the area. Let's move on now to the upward continuations. In order to get an idea about depths, we applicate 4 levels of upward continuations at 1 kilometer altitude. There are no big difference between upward continuation and the boogie anomaly map. At 3 kilometers of altitude, we notice that the signature of Qudit al-Halfa disappeared. At 9 kilometers, we clearly see that the signature of Sbiba Trough disappeared, but Rohiyya 1 persists. This can be explained maybe that the Rohiyya Trough is deeper than Sbiba 1. At 27 kilometers, isogal curves still parallel and there are no difference, so we can consider it as the regional gravity map. Let's move on now to the horizontal gravity gradient. This technique allows us to delineate different discontinuities in the area. So the location of the horizontal gravity gradient maxima coincides with graben limits and validates the interference between the 2 main faulting system trends, which are northwest-southeast and east-west. The horizontal gravity gradient map shows that the Trozza structure is bounded by 2 parallel discontinuities trending northeast-southwest. Also, Qudit Halfa structure is surrounded by a faulting system which delineates its border. The most preferential one is located at the north part, trans-east-west. Thus, this fault system is probably caused by the uplift of salt material. It also shows that the north-south axis continues toward the north and lies Shirishira fault. Superposition of the HGG treatment and the geological map proves the existence of previous faults and bring more details about their hidden parts. For example, Al-Gdah fault of Wed Bahul structure continues toward the northeast. Also, we can notice here the identification of new faults. Let's move on now to the error deconvolution to get an idea about depths of those discontinuities. Here we note that the obtained solutions correlate with the measured lineament discontinuities detected by the horizontal gravity gradient. The error deconvolution shows that the boundary faults each of Ruhia and Sbiba gradients range between 700 and 2000 meters. The east part of the map shows high depths value which can reach 205 meters, 2,500 meters. The deepest contacts are mainly directed north-south. Here we superpose the horizontal gravity gradient map and the structural map generated from the geological map to get more details about about different lineaments in the area. This map probably can be enhanced if we continue the gravity analysis. So, as a conclusion, main results are summarized in the following principal points. Superposition of gravity data and geological map shows a high degree of correlation. The analysis of the boogie and residual gravity maps has led to a specific study case of a salt structure. In fact, a positive gravity anomaly was detected as an unusual response to a salt structure extrusion, such as Qudit Halfa and the salt bodies that outcrop along the master strike fault, Sbiba Shirishira. This unusual response is due to the density contrast between the Triassic materials denser than the Neo-Pliocene strata. Also, observation of isogal curves in both residual and boogie gravity map shows that Ruhia and Sbiba grabens admit asymmetric configurations. Indeed, north boundary faults are more prominent. This result is also proved by the gravimetric profile along Ruhia trough. The horizontal gravity operation define a set of lineament fracture zones of valid direction and orders. The northwest-southeast, east-west, northeast-southwest, and north-south. The horizontal gravity gradient allows us to define new faults which was not marked in the geological map. Moreover, the HGG map shows that the major tectonic corridors, the north-south axis continues toward the north under the sedimentary cover, and it lies the Shirishira fault. The Al-Gdah fault of Wed Bahul structure continue toward the northeast. Thank you for your presence, for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Rima, for this presentation, very rich information and structural analysis. If there are any questions?
Thank you, Rim, for the presentation. I have one question. For a better choice of the regional map, you generate this polynomial and the upward continuation maps at 4 different depths. Okay? So did you use the spectrum to locate the deep anomaly sources?
Yes, I used this method, but it wasn't mentioned here on the presentation because the work is ongoing.
Okay. Only what
the deep anomaly sources, which depth do you adapt?
Here we have to make the gravimetric models, so the work is ongoing.
On the last point, the depth of the deep anomaly sources correspond to which geological interface? Is it the Triassic, the Paleolithic, the Precambrian?
I didn't catch that, sorry.
From the spectral analysis, you get generally 3 levels, which are the shallow, the intermediate, and the deep sources. Okay, the depth of the deep sources. I asked you about the depth. I want to know the depth exactly. It is 4, 10, 25, 30 kilometers.
Maybe under the Triassic material, the deepest sources.
If the deep sources correspond to 4 or 5 kilometers, maybe it will be
4 or 5?
Yes, kilometer. The deep sources.
Yes.
It will be the Triassic, maybe the Jurassic.
Yeah.
That's, I'm asking about this point. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
How can you explain how to have this structure when you use gravimeter? What's the result?
To more explain the structure of Qudit al-Halfa, we have to go further to make gravity models to say if, but upward continuation can give us an idea about the depth of this structure. The problem with gravity is the non-unicity of models. We can say that it is enraciné ou pas, okay? But we have to get gravity models to bring details about this. Je peux parler en français. C'est un piston triasique, mais les failles radiaires qui entourent la structure de Qudit al-Halfa peut expliquer peut-être que la structure, que le sel a percé, du coup il a créé ce système radiaire des failles.
Bon, vous avez combiné la gravimétrie.
Petit diapo.
Regardez où ça se trouve, le triassique de Qudit al-Halfa. Il se trouve coincé entre deux failles horizontales. Là, deux failles est-ouest, là, celle-là, et la grande faille. Le jeu de ces deux failles-là, ils vont entraîner.
Vous parlez voilà de la fin.
Il va percer. Il n'a pas percé n'importe où. Il a percé juste dans une zone bien déterminée.
Oui.
Donc, bon, deuxième question, il y a des pliants Michelin sur la bordure sud, il n'y a pas sur la bordure nord.
Comment tu?
Michelin fort.
Yeah.
But on ne peut pas les trouver
Non.
vers la faille est-ouest.
Mais M. Faiss peut nous expliquer ça.
Moi, c'est ça, tout simplement, il faut connaître la géométrie de la faille principale.
It's okay, I have 2 questions. Why you call it the Rohiyya transversal?
La forme c'est bien transversal. 6 cartes géologiques, est-ouest.
And what What's about the characterization of the lineaments in terms of cinematic and dynamic?
Yeah, here we have finished the work. So to get an idea about the cinematic of different discontinuities, to details about the geodynamic. Here the map is not finished.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And pass next speaker. I call it Mr. Anush. I call it Mr. Banush. There is missing. So we pass to the next one. Will be presented by myself. Entitled Stress Field and Tectonic Evolution, Science Paris Week in south of Tunisia, Geodynamic Application en Segmentary.
Il faut respecter l'horaire, monsieur, pour qu'on puisse se déplacer d'une salle à une autre. Il faut commencer maintenant. Votre communication est à commencer à 11h50. Oui, vous allez attendre, bien sûr. Vous ne faites pas un appel dans certains congrès. Je m'excuse, professeur.
speak?